And I was looking at this material here in chapter 12, the first growl, because I see in it, wow, as if for the first time, that there's a sort of correspondence here with what could be Joseph Smith, you know, and his writing of the Book of Mormon and Doctrine and Covenants. But also in regard to what he says here about anathema, to use the word anathema. This story of anathema reminds me of another story which may provide very useful material for understanding the strangeness of the psyche of the three-brained beings of the planet Earth. Furthermore, it may reassure you a little and give you some hope that even if these peculiar terrestrial beings did learn how you had insulted them and should anathematize you, things might not turn out so badly for you after all. Also, we can see Rush Limbaugh in this, because Rush Limbaugh is a writer of his own books, and he is a professor of what he calls conservatism. And by socialist types, so-called quote-unquote liberal types here in America, they have anathematized Rush Limbaugh for that, for being so anti-socialist, and instead professes a pursuit of, as was the original intent of the founding fathers of America, the pursuit of happiness, prosperity, freedom here in America, which we are in danger, we are truly in danger of losing. And Gurdjieff speaks of a story which sounds like the story of Rush Limbaugh, but also sounds like the story of Joseph Smith and the Mormon religion. The story I'm going to tell you is about something that happened quite recently among the three-brained beings of that planet Earth, and it came about as follows. In one of their large communities, there existed quite peaceably an ordinary being who was by profession a writer. Joseph Smith, he was a farmer and perhaps was very unhappy with that way of life and became a writer. And as happens, according to the description of Gurdjieff, by way of pride, Joseph Smith does show every indication that he was an awakened man in a spiritual sense, although by the way of pride, and rewrote the Gospels, rewrote the Bible, what is called the Book of Mormon. It seems to be a correspondence here with that. Here you must know that in long past ages one could occasionally run across beings of that professional writer, who still invented and wrote something really by themselves, but in later times, okay, that he was talking about real writing, but then later times, especially in recent times, writers have been of the kind that only copy out all sorts of ideas from many books already in existence and fit them together to make a new book, quote unquote new. And in general, they prefer books that have reached them from their remote ancestors, like the Bible. I must point out that the books fabricated by contemporary writers, taken all together, are the principal factor in diluting the reason of all the other three-brained beings there until it has become, as the Muller Nasreddin says, thinner than air. And so, my boy, the contemporary writer I was speaking of was just such a writer like all the rest. and was nothing particular in himself. Like Farmer Joe Smith. He was just an ordinary farmer, right? One day, after finishing one of his books, he began to wonder what to write about next, and decided to look for some new idea in the books piled up in his library, which every, of course, self-respecting writer there feels obliged to have. As he was rummaging about, a book called The Gospels fell into his hands. The Gospels is the name given there to a book written once upon a time by a certain Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John about Jesus Christ, a messenger from our endlessness above to the planet Earth. This book is widely circulated among the three-centered beings there who nominally exist according to the indications of this messenger, Jesus Christ. Well, like the Book of Mormon is widely circulated. And by the way, I was baptized, me, James Wiley, I was baptized into the Mormon Church, Burbank, First Ward. And it was true baptism. It was great love. The room was filled with people. A young Mormon missionary performed the service. And the pool of water, and I was so filled with love, and I could see this pure, just like a pale blue light, energy everywhere, and I was so filled with joy and love. It was real baptism. And I kept saying over and over, because of this feeling of joy, I love you, I love you, I love you. It was real, it was real. Once a Mormon, always a Mormon. I am probably seen as a Jack Mormon, but the baptism was real, so probably I am still a Mormon. Burbank, First Ward. Some years ago. And when this writer happened to come across that book, the notion suddenly popped into his head, why shouldn't I also write a gospel? According to certain investigations that I had to make for quite different needs of mine, he must then have deliberated as follows. Am I any worse than those ancient barbarians, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Johnny? At least I am more cultured than they were, those ordinary fisher of men. And I can certainly write a much better gospel for my contemporaries. What is more, a gospel is the very thing that is needed just